Well, we're here with Debbie Price, and she's a survivor of domestic violence. And today she's going to share a little bit about her story. Debbie, thank you so much for being with us here. I would like you to introduce a little bit of yourself, and
Okay.
before we even mention domestic violence, I would like to
Okay.
introduce yourself too.
All right. Well, I'm Debbie Price. I am a survivor, and I grew up as a minister's daughter, and I was always very indoctrinated to trust God and to do the right thing and live for God. And the church that I was raised in was very strict. We didn't believe in divorce. We didn't believe if you just get in a situation, you just pray about it. And God would help you to overcome, and just deal with what you were dealing with. And I grew up as the fifth child of, like I said, my father was a minister. I think I told that all right, if I did or not. And he was a minister in the Pentecostal Holiness Church. He was a wonderful man, and he loved God, and he loved his family. My mother was very wonderful and was great and a good Christian woman. So I was raised very, very strict about legalism and everything else, and not only just the biblical. So, I wasn't allowed to go to dances or movies, couldn't drink, smoke, chew, or anything. So pretty much I was told no. So when I graduated from high school, I went to a Christian college, of course. Only had a few choices, and so I chose the one I always wanted to go to, was in Emmanuel in Franklin Springs, Georgia.
Cool. Well, growing up in such an environment, it just sounds like a very safe environment.
Very safe.
So, the violence came from your husband, correct?
Yes, my first husband, yes.
So, how in such a, let's say, a nice environment where, we expect to meet just nice people in church and, among Christian people, but how did you meet him?
Well, the second day I was at Emmanuel. We had a freshman get together, and a friend of mine who was from another church that I knew her through my sister. They went to church together. She knew some people from the town that my ex was from, and so she introduced me to him and another guy, and that's how I first met him. I met him there at the social, and he was very sweet and very nice, and just a very, I was very attracted at first, the first thing. He was just, I thought, wow, this guy's really nice, and he,
Well,
was very sweet.
So being nice, you ended up marrying him.
I did.
So, how things start changing?
Well, I felt God had put us together. I felt he was the right one for me. And if he had any faults or any type of temper or anything, that I would help him. I thought I could change him, but I couldn't. But he normally was a nice person.
Do you think that God put him on your way? Do you still think that?
Well, the way things happened, and the way my children were born, I'm so glad I have my children. So at that time in my life, you couldn't tell me different. So, I accepted that he was the right one for me. I really felt that really deep inside my heart. So, if it was my naivety or whatever it was, I really thought it was God sent, and he wanted to change if he had, if he got mad about something, I tried to help him, and he wanted to get better, But
There's a lot of people, they always question, there's a lot of people that they're always ready to judge other people. And one of the questions that those people always do is, how could you not tell? How did you get involved with somebody who was violent and ended up marrying somebody like this?
Well, he wasn't violent all the time. Normally, he was very nice. He would be very sweet, very easygoing. If something like a crisis happened with his car, or things wasn't going his way, and I think he's really a narcissist, just trying to be in control of everything, and even with me, I saw that, and I just surrendered. I was just so happy. I thought, God, we're going to go out and save the world and help people, and I always felt like in my heart that God had a calling for me, and he felt that in his heart too. And sometimes he was a little slower about doing things, but then he would feel like God, wanted him to do certain things. He thought about being a forest ranger at one time, and I was just willing to go. I thought, this guy, he's a Christian, he's Pentecostal holiness, and that was the thing. My family never wanted me to marry anybody out of the church. So, that was something I was indoctrinated with, that you do and you stay within your church. And the reason being is they didn't want me to, date Catholics or Methodists or Baptists or any other denomination. It was really crazy. My parents were very controlling about that, and if I bring a boy home that wasn't Pentecostal, I really heard about it.
So do you think that kind of kept you unexperienced for or unprepared for life?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was very sheltered. Very sheltered. And I did go to public school. I graduated from high school, and my friends, that are people that I went to school with, they were very careful about doing things that they knew I didn't approve of, or was, I was really into the church. I was, it was like a cult type situation. I really look at it like that, because I'm not in that anymore. So.
And did you have kids with him?
I did. I had a boy first and a little girl. My son was born in 1982. After college, my last year of college, I was pregnant, and the last 6 months of my going to college, and then we moved to Asheville, North Carolina. We became ministers in our church, and actually he was a minister. He was eventually an ordained minister. And I just had a Associate of Arts degree from Emmanuel College. I worked and that was in religion, Christian education.
Was he also violent towards the kids,
Yeah.
just you, the kids as well?
Mm-hmm.
So how long did you get married? Did you stay married to him?
Well, I left him 3 times, and I tried to make things better in our life. I really felt like God was leading us to go into the mission work, because we were pastoring churches, and I really felt that in my heart, and he didn't want to do that. He didn't agree. He didn't think, but he started praying about it. And eventually, we met some people, and that was missionaries, and I really felt like God wanted us to do that. So we ended up going to Mexico City.
Did you ever recognize he had a problem, or?
Oh, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
So he knew.
Oh, yeah.
He was wrong,
Mm-hmm.
but he just couldn't control himself.
It would get better. He would try to get better and try to be calm and caring, but he always acted like he didn't have enough money. He didn't have, he wanted to be in charge of the family. I couldn't watch television unless he approved of the things that we watched. He couldn't, there was a lot of things that kind of in the church that they, were they're not as strict nowadays. In fact, they even allow people who are divorced to be a minister. Now. But back then it wasn't like that.
So do you think that his violence was more caused by his belief? That he was so religious strict that's what caused him to be violent? Or that's just his nature?
I think you took it too far. I think, there's a lot of people in the church that were very sweet and nice, and they weren't like that. That believed like we did. But he would just get a bad temper. His temper would be scary, and you knew you better do the right thing. Like he wanted supper on the table when he got home, and he said, "My mama had supper on the table. My mother had 5 boys and 1 girl, and and I expect you have dinner on the table when I get home, and and he wanted the children to be quiet, and and he loved his children, of course, but still to this day, he makes people think that he's just very calm and loving, and I hope he's done him better, but he's treated my daughter really, really bad, and she's dealt with.
Sounds for me like he was more of a caveman. Treat woman like an object, and and
that was with
servant.
everything. Yeah, that was with everything. He, and he was, he neglected us. I felt like I was in the way. I always felt like, if he didn't have us in his life, he would be better off. And, he really, like I said, we got married, and I had the baby three years later, after I finished college, and I had it hard. His parents and family, they had some money, and they were farmers, and they had some money in North Carolina, and they would help us some and everything, and I really appreciate that. And I was always a very happy type person. I always tried to treat people good, and I hardly ever got upset, but he would have these bursts of anger, like, if he didn't have the money, or, I just felt like it was just always something,
And was there occasion that got to the point of having to call the police, for example?
No, I didn't want to involve the police. And that was something I was always growing up, and people, we were in the church, and, you just deal with it. No, nothing never happened to that point, or nobody called, the police on us, but we let him, I let him, and also my children, we tried to do what he wanted us to do. He, like I said, when I was with my sister, and I had just gotten back with him for the second time when I had left him in Mexico City, the children and I came home, and I was staying at that time with my sister, because we were going to try to make it again. We were going to try to get back together. And because he told me when I was leaving the airport in Mexico City, I said, he said, well, just, we'll talk about it. I know things will get better, and when I get home. But it just wasn't good. And when I tried to start reaching out and doing things for myself and wanting things to be done for myself, that's when I had problems. When if I wanted something, or if I needed to, take care of myself, or buy clothes or whatever, or for the children, it was just always very, very controlling, and he wanted us on a budget, and, and in life, that's nothing wrong with, that. It's fun, but, it was just not a very good environment, and, and he would tell me I was bad, and belittle me, and my self-esteem really got really, really low, and, I knew that something was better for my children and me out there. So the second time I left home and we went to my sister's, he told her at the kitchen table, he said, and this is when we had gotten back together, I left him 3 times, this was the second time, and he said, she needs to listen to me, and if she doesn't agree with me, she needs to pray to God until God shows her that I, talking about him, is right. Even if he does something wrong, he says, I am still right, talking about himself.
And that lasted for 10 years, you said.
Mm-hmm.
So what triggered you to finally walk away for real?
Well, I went to visit my parents. We were living in eastern North Carolina in a little town called Black Creek. It was close to Goldsboro, in the area that he was from, and I was working, and he was working as a security guard, and he hadn't been pastoring, and I told him I would turn him in if he didn't turn himself in for the ordination, because I didn't think he was fit to be, a minister, the way he was treating us and treating me, and I went home to my parents. Oh, by the way, he did turn himself in for the ordination. He turned that in, but then later on he got it back, and but that was after we weren't together anymore. So the children and I went to visit my parents in western North Carolina area, and in fact, I went to talk to a lawyer there in eastern North Carolina, and he told me, "Do you have family? Do you have somebody that you can go home to?" Because he said, he knew that didn't have any money. He knew I didn't, and I had met this lady at work, and she told me she used him as her lawyer. And so I made my plan. I went home to visit my parents for my birthday, and I told them, I said, "Is there any way that we can come and live with y'all? And I'll get a job, And so I told him, when I went back home, I told him, I said, "I'm leaving. I'm taking the children, and we're going to move, and get out, out of that area. And, I'm going to get a divorce." A separation, of course, at first. And then
What was his reaction to that?
Well, he wasn't really happy about it, but I don't know. He wasn't begging me to stay, really.
Usually they become aggressive on that situation.
Yeah, he was upset about it. Yeah.
That's most of the case that we see nowadays. They are afraid of saying that they're gonna leave or anything, because they say, "If you try to leave me, I'll kill you."
Yeah, he wasn't going to kill me, because he don't want to get to jail, and but he wanted to. He killed me in my, my personality. I was never beautiful enough for him. I was never, and two, he was so charming at first, and we sang in college in a group, and we traveled, and just he would make me think that he was going to be so good to me and treat me so good, and then he would change. It would be like one way at church when we worked in churches, and when we'd come home, he was stern, and he just wasn't happy.
So after you left with your kids, problem solved?
Well, what happened was I got the separation papers, and I was making him. He would never provide the money for us to really live. So he was working a security job at JCPenney, and I got a lawyer, and I got separated, and I got him to start paying some child support. And my problem was I didn't go through the courts. We did it on our own, and I shouldn't have done that. But he did pay every time, but he really didn't want to, and he got to the point he would pay it when he wanted to, and he would put them together, or he would, and he was trying. One time he almost one time out of those years that the children were with me, that he almost didn't pay, and I called him. And he paid me, so paid for the children and helped me out. But it wasn't much. It was only $70 a week for both children, and then it went up to, and he was supposed to pay the insurance, and that was always a hassle with him dealing with the insurance if the children needed to go to the doctor or whatever. So, or if there was and Matthew cut his chin one time at Burger King playground, and I was just having to deal with him. He was like, even if we were separated, we were having to still deal with him, with the children. When you have children, you have to, it wasn't co-parenting.
How old were they when you separated?
Well, it was in 1988 and 89. 89 was when I separated. So the children, they were born in 82 and 84. So let me think. Lauren was probably, see, she would have been around 4 or 5, and Matthew would have been around 8 or 9.
Still very little.
Yeah, they were very young. And my parents were very caring. And my mother was overbearing, and to me. She always wanted to, tell me how to live. So I was always raised in something that, I had to answer to people. Always had to answer to people.
There is another situation that it's very common, that the women just don't leave the husbands because they have kids. So they don't want the kids not to have the parents separated.
Right.
So how was the relationship of your kids with him, and how did they face the separation?
It was very hard. They didn't get to see him every day, because we were like about 4 hours from him. And so I think it was about 4 hours. But he would come. He got to the point that he would come. He'd try to come every other weekend, and he'd always have these bum cars. Nothing that. He could have, and he did. He finally got a car when he came one time to pick them up, and his car broke down, and after he had brought the children back, and. I think he realized he had to have a good car,
So he would take the kids for vacation?
Like a
things like
weekend,
that?
yeah, like a weekend. But he did take them for vacation. And in 1985, I was dealing with him and about wanting them to come and visit for the summer. And in 95, not 85, 95. He took the children for a 2 to 3 week vacation, and they called me. They called actually, and said they wanted to stay another week. And I thought, well, that'd be fine. If they want to stay another week, that's okay. I was working and over where I was living at, and it was fun. And so they told me they were coming home. It was in July. I can't remember the date. And Lauren, my daughter, had already had her birthday, and I had bought a cake mix. I was gonna have her and I to make the cake together for her birthday to celebrate it. And she turned 11, and my son was getting ready to turn 13 in October, and he was 12. And they told me they were coming home, and I was there waiting for them at home, and they never showed up. And what I found out about was when my ex-husband called me and told me they're not coming home. They're going to stay with, he was married, and they were going to stay with him. They had built a brand new house, which I knew over the period of time they were building, but I didn't know when, all that. And they were brainwashing the children, telling them that they could come and live with them. Over probably around when Lauren said around when she was 10.
But that was against the children's will, or they chose to stay?
What happened was they really liked their new home, and I didn't know where it was, the area where it was, or I just knew, I had the phone number that Doug had given me, or the children, got him to give me, and but they were just, everything was just new and everything.
And it was just vacation, so it was always good time. So it's easy to convince the kids.
Right, and the woman he married had money. And she was in the church too, which I knew her before they got together. We were still together. She was older, much older than him. And, they just made everything look so great. And he
But did you get the kids back?
He was still controlling.
Did you get the kids? You didn't?
They came
because at that
in
point,
life in the future. But I went down there to try to find them that evening when it happened, And I took my papers in, and I want to warn people, when you have lawyers and you go and you do all the paperwork and get the lawyers to give you separation, custody of the children, which I had, and everything has to be listed on the divorce papers. And on my divorce papers, the same lawyer that I went to, he did not list on there about the custody. And I did not know that. I thought everything, since I got the separation with them through that lawyer, and then I got divorced from the same lawyer, and he told me when I called him, he said everything should be fine, But when I went down and showed the papers to the sheriff's department, they told me, that it doesn't say in here that you have custody of the children. And when I had them to call my ex-husband, and he said, they want to live with me now. They don't, everything was his way. Everything was still his way, always. He wanted to control everything. And so that's what I dealt with. And I was broken.
So they grew up for the next years with the father.
Mm-hmm. And my soul and my heart, everything was just destroyed. And I had, I was crying for a week, and I know I was probably crying longer, but I just had to think about what I was supposed to do, what I need to do. My family was, they were very upset. We wouldn't get to see the children.
So you couldn't visit
them?
them?
See, they thought, eventually I was able to see them, but they thought that they would see me like their daddy would come and see him, me before him. He would come and see them. They told him that, yeah, you can come and see us. Well, I'm 4 hours away, and I'm working just a regular retail job, hardly making any money. And, they just thought that everything, and the church was involved. They wanted the kids there too. The Pentecostal church down in Goldsboro. So they wanted, it was just like, it was all engulfed. They were all, the families, everybody was just working together with my ex to do that.
And there was nothing the police could do about it?
No, not that. They said, and I did not pursue to go to court, because he told me he was going, if we had to go to court, and he got custody of them and everything, that he would have them, he would even have them to have gotten on the stand and testify that they wanted to live with him. I mean, he brainwashed them to make them think that everything, was going to be great, and, this is a new life. They didn't even get to come back home and get their things. Everything was still there like they were coming home. Mm-hmm. Everything. And so he just kidnapped them. And yes, I could have put him in jail, eventually. If I had the money, I didn't have any money, to pursue, and people would say, well, why did you not get your kids? Why didn't you pursue it? I was like, he was like Goliath, and I was like David. It was just that type of situation.
So there's marks forever, because you pretty much lost a big part of your kids' lives.
Absolutely. Weddings, graduations, everything. Because I told them, I said, I am not having anything to do with him. I got us out of there. We got out of, that situation, and I don't want to be around someone like that.
Did you ever hear anything about violence towards the kids after that? Or?
Mm-hmm. Till this day. It's mostly emotional and psychological, and control.
And what about these scars on you?
But my son is fine. It's my daughter. It just breaks my heart.
What about the scars on you now? Because there's always trauma.
Well, I'm doing really good. I've got a good family. I've got a wonderful husband that loves me. And we've been married almost 25 years. So
that's good.
I got a good life now, and he knows, and I know, that God is in control. But you can't let Christianity or any religion to overtake your life that you cannot really live, you know. And that's the way I tried to raise my children. When I had my children, I tried to raise them to love life, to be happy, love God, love life, but just don't let the church, religion, or whatever overtake you, you know, because I always knew God loved me and cared about me, and I tried to do the right thing. But Wallace, when somebody blames you for things that you had no control over or didn't have anything to do with, I mean, they were blaming, you know, the children and me. And the first time he ever hit me was because I had disciplined my son. We were going down the road. We had just left my family to go towards his family, and he took his fist and hit me in the leg. And because I had not disciplined our son, who was picking on our daughter in the back seat, in the car seats, and he pulled on the side of the road, and he was going to take care of it. He was going to, you know, show Matthew, you know, and you know, see, we didn't even believe in dancing. I mean, the '80s was just like, it wasn't there for me. The whole year, 10 years that I was with him, we didn't listen to secular music. You didn't do, you know, everything was part of the church, you know, and you did what God wanted you to do, which, you know, but God wasn't in all that crazy stuff, you know. Mm-mm.
So what would you do different? So what would you recommend someone who is in the same situation nowadays to do?
Safely get out. Think about yourself, your children, and if you want to have a peaceful life, not an abrupt life, and a life of being like a slave, there is a lot better life out there. And I believe, you know, I don't know what would have happened if we had stayed together, but it would have been good. So, you know, I took it for a long time. 10 years is a long time.
Which that same situation that is very common for a lot of women, thinking that he's gonna change.
Oh, absolutely.
He's gonna get better.
Bring flowers or whatever, you know, they just think that everything is going to be wonderful, you know. And the thing is, too, when you get into that type of situation and you have, you know, when I turned 21 years old, I had gotten married at 19, and he was 20, or almost, he was 20, and I was 19. And when I told him I said something about turning 21, he said, well, so what? You know, that doesn't mean anything, you know. And he belittled me. I feel like I was just like a little bug on the floor, you know, I was, you know, and that was wrong. Verbal and mental, psychological abuse and physical abuse of neglect, and things that I had to beg him to take care of the children about if something happened medically or an accident. You know, we don't just put a piece of cotton in her mouth and think that she's going to be fine if she busted her mouth. She needs to go to the emergency room. And that was in Mexico. And we needed to go. And I begged him to take her. And we all went to the hospital, to the American hospital. And she had 4 stitches in her mouth, and her underneath her lip was cut. And she had fallen, twirling in the nursery at the church. And as a little girl, just having fun, you know, and hit one of those metal chairs, you know, those nice metal chairs. And so he thought, no, she's going to be fine. We're going to just let her, you know, just put that little piece of cotton in her mouth. One of the doctors there, who was a gynecologist, and he told him, he was from going to the church. You see, we were in an environment that the men were in control. And you know what I'm saying, you know. Women have to surrender. And when I was raised, you know, you submit to your husband. You do. And he took it to extremes. And there are not everybody's like that.
I don't know how he didn't try to have several women like that. Because I see some of the some families that the man just picks several women, and I don't understand how those women submit themselves to those
I know.
conditions.
Well, I believed I was going to be married for life. I was raised, I didn't believe in divorce. But my mother, thank God for my mother. And I know my mother could be nosy and overbearing and everything else, but she always told me, if you need to come home, come home. And she did not like...
That made a huge difference.
Yeah, I thank God that she was there. If she had not been there, and my family, especially my mother, and I started a new life with the children at that time in 1989. I got a job at the hospital, and I worked the switchboard and the ER receptionist. I registered people, and that was my career. And till this day, I still work in telecommunications. So in receptionist type work.
So you married again.
I did, yeah.
And how hard was it to trust another man?
Well, I found a good man.
He's right here.
Right there, yeah. And he's just so good to me. I did not know what it was like to have somebody who really cared for me and loved me. So we took our time. We dated for 3.5 years. I think that's a long time.
That's a long time.
Yeah. So then we got married. And like I said, we'll be married 25 years. And he's a wonderful man. And he cares about me and respects me. And I appreciate that so much. I appreciate my husband.
And just ending up our conversation for today, I would like you to talk a little bit about a song. You wrote a song about it.
I did.
That we're going to play right after the video.
Okay. Well, that song, these words started coming to me around 1993. And I knew I wasn't going to shut up. I always had been verbal about what had happened. But things in his life, he was moving on. He had gotten back with the church. He'd gotten saved again or whatever, ordained and everything else. And he was preaching and working at church. And of course his family had some money, and they were always, the church and the money and all that stuff, it's like a business type thing too. So, but of course, I really felt like I needed to write a song when it happened to me. I just started writing it all down, and the tune came into my head, and I was like, I'm not able to play this. I normally would write with the guitar, and I was like, I've just got to sing it. I got the tune, and I've got the words, and I was everything just like, okay, I got to get a piece of paper and pen, start writing this down. And it just came. It just flowed. All my emotions, all my feelings of what had been done to me by him. But people can use the song for other things too. I think when people have listened to it, I think they can, relate that to their life or whatever the situation is. But I've sung at a couple of vigils, my song, and one girl told me one time, she said, I've got to listen to your song one more time because I'm getting ready to break up with my boyfriend. So I thought, well, okay, good.
How was the reaction of your kids about the song?
Actually, it's been good. It's been good. And my son's doing really great, and my daughter's been doing really great. But she tried to.
They're both married now?
No, my daughter's divorced, but my son is married, and he's got 3 sons. So we have grandchildren, 3 boys. Yeah. And my daughter's doing great, too. She's doing good. Yeah.
Okay. So before we play your song, because that's how we end in our video today, would you like to define us and send some message to the women who are facing the same situation right now?
Absolutely. Yes, I am a survivor of domestic violence, and there is a way out, but there's a safe way out. Always make sure you are taking care of your children and of yourself. And yourself, if it's just yourself, you are worthy and you are respectful, and people should respect you and your children, and you can live in a life that is peaceful. Thank you.
Thank you for coming, and now let's listen to your song.
Okay.
When I was young, I dreamed of love and romance, and a life with my handsome prince. I had such hope of love and sharing my life with you. I dreamed we'd walk together hand in hand, but you walked all over me. You walked all over me. Why did you deceive me? Make me believe that you cared for me. Why did you deceive me? Make me believe that you love me, that you love me. I was blind to believe you were mine. I gave you my heart with all my love, and you stole my soul. You made me feel I would never be whole. You took my youth, my dignity, you stifled me. I lost all feeling to be free. I lost all feeling to be